They say every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for...
Recently, members of the House of Representatives Committee on Anti-Corruption, the board and management of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, took time away from the hustle and bustle of Abuja to the serene city of Uyo in Akwa Ibom State to deliberate on how to strengthen the fight against corruption. The two-day retreat featured paper presentations on current anti-corruption issues and strategies and intense deliberations and discussions on how to surmount the issues. Welcome to Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. I am your host, Hawa Sani Garba. First, let us join Joy Aja with anti-corruption stories.
Hello viewers, thank you for joining us. I am Joy Aja with Anti-Corruption Stories. ICPC has arraigned Mrs. Patricia Eni Hassan and Mr. Zacchaeus B. Ghana before Justice M.B. Idris of High Court 36 sitting in Nyanya FCT Abuja for alleged fraud and obtaining by false pretense. The two accused were arraigned before the court on a 6-count charge which bordered on fraud, dishonesty, falsification of documents, and corruption. Part of the charge, as read in the court, stated that sometime between 2014 and 2016, both accused conspired to obtain by false pretense the sum of 10 million naira from the Redeemed Christian Church of God, the Wealthy Place Parish, Gwarimpa, Abuja, to secure land for the church, which they failed to do. They were also alleged to have forged an offer of statutory right of occupancy purportedly issued by the Federal Capital Territory Administration. The defendants both pleaded not guilty to all the charges, and thereafter their counsel, Nureni Sulaiman, who represented the first defendant, Patricia, and C.C. Eze for the second defendant, Zacchaeus, made an oral application for bail, which was not opposed by the prosecution counsel, Agbili Kingsley. The defendants were granted bail to the sum of 5 million naira. In addition, they must each produce a surety who shall enter a bail bond of 5 million naira with evidence of their ownership of landed property within the jurisdiction of the courts. The matter was then adjourned for trial. ICPC is determined to ensure that critical stakeholders are made to be aware of all integrity mechanisms in the maritime sector, as well as enforce compliance. The chairman of ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasonye SAN, made this known in his keynote address at the Business Action Against Corruption Integrity Alliance inaugural meeting organized by Convention on Business Integrity in collaboration with the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network in Lagos recently. Professor Owasonye, who was represented by Mr. Jimoh Sulaiman, Assistant Commissioner ICPC, said the Commission was in full support of multiplying the ranks of ambassadors for positive change to further drive the practice of integrity in the sector. He stated that ICPC was joining all stakeholders in the maritime sector to declare that impunity was over and that ICPC would be unrelenting to facilitate the promotion and strict enforcement of the Harmonized Standard Operation Procedures, Port Service Support Portal, and Nigeria Port Process Manual, which were all mechanisms put in place to reduce corruption and make the ports efficient. In his contribution, Deputy Commissioner ICPC Mr. Demola Bakare said the Commission's aim was to infuse integrity in the ports, and it was easier for pressure groups to speak up because government cannot do it alone. He advised that Integrity Alliance members must practice integrity and not damage the interests of the group. On the National Ethics and Integrity Policy, Demola said that the ICPC was willing to partner with the Alliance members to inculcate its principles in their activities. That will be all on this segment. Corruption Must Go continues with Hawa. Stay with us.
Corruption must go. There is no denying the fact that active interest and participation by all on how government funds are expended and how decisions are made by public officials on issues affecting the general society will contribute a great deal to the development of the nation and impact positively on the people's well-being. The chairman of ICPC, Professor Bolaji Onwuasonye, SAN, in his welcome remarks at the two-day retreat for members of the House of Representatives Committee on Anti-Corruption, board members and directors of the Commission stated that the regulations of the cryptocurrency trading in Nigeria would help prevent the swindling of unsuspecting members of the public. He also emphasized the need for more regulations to address illicit financial flows and other related offenses.
I want to use this opportunity to express the gratitude of the ICPC for this collaboration and this cooperation that we enjoy with the House of Rep Committee in particular, and also the Senate Committee that oversight our work. We have chosen the focus of this interaction to look at areas that are of critical importance to our country, the mandate of ICPC, and also the mandate of the National Assembly Anti-Corruption Committee. We have chosen to look at the not so regular areas, perhaps, that they focus on. We're looking at the opportunity cost of corruption and how it impacts national security. We are looking at illicit financial flows typologies. We're looking at cryptocurrencies and the role that they are playing in the economy of nations generally, and that of Nigeria in particular. And hopefully we'll be looking at public service and integrity generally.
In his opening remarks at the retreat, the chairman of the House Committee on Anti-Corruption, Honorable Shehu Nicholas Gerba, while commending the Commission for the collaboration, stated that the Ninth National Assembly has made the fight against corruption one of its cardinal mandates.
It's not that corruption and its consequences have held this country backward. And whatever we do in this regard, I think we will be doing a great service to our nation if our effort is able, to bring this malaise to national consciousness and perhaps chart a better course in the fight to minimize corruption as an impact. I think it is against this background that I want to particularly, appreciate the kind of commitment that those members who are here have made, to be here. I think the House of Representatives, especially the Ninth Assembly, has made the fight against corruption as one of its cardinal, issue in the agenda that it has, laid for itself. And the House has made it very clear that besides supporting, the ICPC and other similar agencies in terms of, funding, that we stand ready to spearhead and to push for any, improvement or adjustment or, amendment to its enabling legislation where that is considered necessary.
The committee promised to give the necessary support to ICPC for the war against graft to succeed. Speaking on the topic, national security and the opportunity cost of corruption, Professor Etanebi Alemika of the University of Jos and a member of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, PACAC, lamented the depletion of the nation's resources.
Anything that causes anyone to be apprehensive, that is insecurity. The other side, of course, we talk about security as freedom from fear and want. The other side is if you have a want, a need that you cannot satisfy, and they are essential needs, you are not secure. A person who has a family that is thrown out or is at the risk of being thrown out by the landlord is going to be thrown out with a wife and 4 children in Abuja. And it's not in Itama, not Asokoro, not in... We are talking of Goma village in Nasarawa State. He can't pay the rent. Have you wondered how people in Abuja pay rent, union workers? No, have you ever wondered that people pay a total sum of salary of even the minimum wage now, 360,000 per year. So let's say middle level officer pays 600,000 per year. Where do you get 600,000 apartment in Abuja, except in one man's village? Thereafter, how does that person feel? Why do we opt to give lands to developers that then go around extorting people rather than giving it directly to civil servants for affordable level that they can then find means of developing it themselves? So we are not talking of things that cannot be done. We just need more reflection about how our behavior is causing us a lot of... So national security now is about a state, a nation that is able to protect the citizens, protect their property, and then ensure that their basic needs and necessities are met. It's a state that can, that can protect its core values and also its interests. Unfortunately, along these lines, we've lost it. We are talking about, what we call bribery. We are talking about embezzlement. We are talking about all kinds of fraud. But there is the third part, this third section, which is nepotism. And the financial corruption, means a leakage of resources. But nepotism is also equally very, very dangerous. And you know what it does? When you appoint an incompetent person into office on the basis of nepotism, you know what happens? The first thing he does is to destroy every competent person he met in office. He destroyed every competent person he met in the office. You know the second thing he does? He destroyed all the rules that made that institution capable and efficient. That's the next thing he does. You know the third thing he does? He creates an atmosphere that merit, competence, innovation do not matter. So we must address those issues that are the cause of the anger in the country today. I was part of the generation where, luckily I was not in civil service, but I knew my colleagues each time they traveled, how they were more interested in buying receipt than attending the conference they went for. I'm sure you remember. Before Abacha introduced DTA, I'm trying to use it to illustrate something. Before Abacha introduced DTA in the 90s, when you go out, you take advance, isn't it? And when you come back, as much as you have received, you defray it, isn't it? And we knew buying receipt was all over the place as an act of corrupt behavior. And Abacha said, no, we give you your 10,000 naira. When you come back, don't account for anything. If you like, you can sleep under the bridge. Having that called the behavior of buying receipt. That's why I say law can be a major educative instrument, a good reorientation, and I think it's in your hand. I do hope you use it wisely.
Also at the retreat, Professor Jonathan Aremu of Covenant University gave an in-depth analysis of illicit financial flows, while Mr. George Tienzenwa of the Federal Ministry of Justice gave an exposition of cryptocurrency, money laundering, and terrorist financing threats.
Who are the actors and their networks involved in this commercial transaction? Who are they? You are going to make any law. If ICPC is going to take action, we need to know them. Oil and gas, trade and taxation. Right? Secondly, how heavily invested are these major actors? And to what extent do they control the influence of our national economy? And this is what we need to really know, so that policies and law can emerge to be able to make sure that we tackle this terrible problem. It's a terrible one. It is interesting to know that the substantial criminal activity of IFFSS, they come from three components, are linked to transnational corporations. Hello, transnational corporations. Whether you are talking of trade, whether you are talking of tax, whether you are talking of oil, the major actor in this 3D typology of IFFS are transnational corporations. So we need to know how transnational corporations, how do they really exist? Right? How do they operate? The operation of TNT, it reveals that they transact better and more among themselves. I, a parent company in US, having an outlet in Australia, having an outlet in France, the volume of trade that goes into your balance of payment from these transnational corporations, they are far more, 60% of the global balance of payment. That is Octal report. So which means substantial opportunity for illicit flow are accountable by activities of transnational corporations. And we need to be very careful of it. Therefore, when you are inviting a foreign direct investment, good. Good. But have in your mind that you are inviting an opportunity for additional illicit flow. I was troubled to the extent I had to write a book. How do we negotiate as well as attract transnational corporations? Having been exposed to this, how do we negotiate? If you don't negotiate, you don't get what you want. The global economy never gives you what you wanted except by negotiation.
Just like the blockchain itself, one links to the other. So if you do your bit, the next country does their bit, the next country does their bit, you'll have a linkage. In one of my slides, the one where I showed you the FATF guidance on virtual assets service providers, like there's a rule that requires every virtual asset service provider to share certain information with the counterparty where the transaction is above $1,000 US. Now, if we implement it here, and licenses are doing that, it's implemented across ECOWAS, you will get an overview of what's going on. So there is already an existing framework for international cooperation in this regard. As a final thing, roughly related to this is the fact that there is also, the central bank is speaking about issuing the e-naira as part of, central bank-based digital currencies. Now, we must, again, there needs to be an understanding that there still is a difference between cryptocurrencies, as in Bitcoin and Ether and all of that, and what you call central bank denominated currencies. Remember that it is important that this was created to bypass third parties. One of the main motivations was to reduce transaction costs and reduce the number of third parties in financial transactions, as well as improve economic inclusivity.
Thereafter, Mr. Ekpo, former chairman of ICPC and current chairman of the Salaries and Wages Commission, represented by Ashiru Baba, FSI, presented a position paper on integrity in the public service. Let's take a listen.
We are therefore faced with the dilemma of redesigning our concept of public service and how ethics and integrity fit into the equation. What is the function of the public service in any country, including Nigeria? At the international level, public service is central to the success of anti-corruption policies. For example, Article 7 of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, recommends that recruitment, management, and training of public officials should involve adequate, 1, procedures for selection and training of officials working in high-risk areas, 2, remuneration and equitable pay scales, 3, education and training programs, including specialized anti-corruption training, and 4, taking measures in enhancing transparency in the funding of political parties and candidates. This article succinctly and aptly captures all the 6 scenarios of our discourse above. At the national level, our Constitution and acts of National Assembly like the Bureau of Public Procurement Act, Public Service Rules, and financial regulations will become meaningless if the conduct of public service is treated with impunity. If we allow equity and integrity to determine public service policies, all players will be bound by strict institutional processes that leave very little room for discretion.
The forum was very interactive, with the honorable members making insightful suggestions on ways to improve the anti-corruption crusade. Without any doubt, the retreat was a success, judging from the enthusiasm and cooperation of all the participants and the progressive outcomes. That's our package on this week's edition of the program. Also note that the Commission various social media platforms are channels by which Nigerians can reach ICPC. We encourage you to use these platforms to make suggestions, comments, and ask questions. Thank you, and see you again next week, Wednesday by 3:30 p.m. Bye for now.